Hello and welcome to a Slice and Dice tier list video. I'm doing a little tier list slash guide series here. Tier listing is just like, this is mostly going to be a guide, but tier listing is better for the analytics. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. I'm going to be doing one of these for the heroes and one of these for the curses, probably. And maybe I'll talk about the items a little bit. I'll see what I feel like. So if you don't know who I am, hello, I play Slice and Dice. I just finished 100 runs of hard. I won 98 of them. So that's why this video is called 98% hard win rate. It's, I think, decent. I should have gotten 99, I think. The first run I didn't really care about, but the run that I lost in the streak was a shame. I won 89 in a row. Not what I was hoping for, but it could have been better. Anyway, yeah. This video is going to have a spreadsheet in the comments and in the description, which you can go look at if you want. It has all my thoughts on hard characters. It also has my old 2.0 thoughts, and it has my pick rates for this streak. Flashbang warning, the screen's going to get white here for a second. Just shield your eyes. Ready? Okay. Here it is if you want to see it. I have heroes, and it has my notes from when I was originally playing and my new notes, and it has my curses, which are organized into a 1, 2, 3, 4 system, which is also how I will be rating them in the curses tier list video. The heroes themselves aren't tier listed within here, it just has my thoughts, and then if you want to go by a tier list, you can go in and you can look at the pick rates, but I think it's not a big deal. The pick rates are a little bit skewed because I did have 36 unfair runs on this file as well, but not a significant amount. Okay, now let's get to it, shall we? I think that we're going to do two sets of tier listing here. We're going to be doing this one, which is going to be the tier 1s, and then I'm going to pause and fix the tier list, and we're going to do the tier 2s and 3s, because how you rank the tier 1s is a lot different than how you rank the tier 2s and 3s. The general theory for picking you're not picking tier 1s, that's the thing, right? Tier 1s are about assessing how strong you are at the start of the run to temper your curse picks. So for example, if you have a really weak starting team, you don't want to play something like Add Wolf because you might just die to it. So we'll go through it real quick. We're going to rank these as strong, average, and alloy, aka weak. And I'm just going to go through. I might miss some of these characters, and I'm not going to edit in the characters onto the screen because I think that that's going to take me way too long. So here we go. Actually, one sec. I need to open the game because I think all the reds look the same. One moment. Okay, I have them. So they're also in alphabetical order, which would be better, but I actually have trouble remembering the sides. Anyway, this is Acolyte, and if you want to follow along, you can open the game and check these out for yourself to see what the sides are as a refresher. Acolyte's mid. There's nothing really interesting to say about this unit. You take 1 mana, and sometimes you get the heal 3 vitality. Kind of nice if you end up with a weird starter like Stony Grasp, because this character does start with Cleanse, which is I think the only character in the game that starts with Cleanse, but yeah, not super good. Not super bad, very mid. This is Alloy. I think Alloy might be my pick for worst character in the game. Alloy is really, really bad. 4 HP and just horrific at keeping your team alive. I don't know what happened. I thought Alloy was kind of whatever in 2.0. This character is offensive. This character is so bad. It's incredible how bad this is. Who's next? Next up is Brigand. Brigand is strong. The trick with Brigand is you always roll down all the way for the 3 exert, unless you are killing something small like a rat or an illusion, then you keep his 1. And he's fine. He's a good starter. Yellows in general have a pretty high curve except for one of them. This is Caldera, sorry, this is Buckle. Buckle's mid. Buckle has 2 X's and sometimes doesn't roll shields, but his shields are strong. He has 2s across the board and one of them's a 4. Just probably don't lock the heavy too often. Your goal as a whole is to play somewhat defensively, but he's not bad and he's not good. He's not Alloy, so you're basically never going to be rerolling based off of your starting team unless you get a really bad, like, game-ending, world-shattering starting team. I'm talking like Prodigy, Mystic, spoilers by the way, Prodigy, Mystic, Lazy Scoundrel, right? That's the sort of starting team where you're like, oh my god, I have to reroll this. But even that is not something you would reroll unless your curses are like Add Goblin, Add Wolf, Add Wisp, right? You would think about it then. Anyway, next up is Clumsy. Clumsy, I think, skews a little bit towards weak, but is probably really mid. The Clumsy plan is you just lock as soon as you don't roll Caltrop, and you live, more or less. Okay, yeah, I don't have a lot to say about Clumsy. Clumsy is just fine. Cultist is strong. Cultist is just very, very good. He makes so much mana, and you give your red something to do on turn 1, because the reds at tier 1 have a lot of healing that they can't make use of. Cultist lets them make use of it. He's great. Defender, I think most of the grays are going to end up mid. I think Defender is actually not that good because he has a 3 and a 2 for his good shields, and then he just has a bunch of nothing. 1 damage is not very good, and 1 shield is not very good, so I think this guy's just kind of whatever. Sorry, I should have prepped ahead, but I didn't want to organize these. This is Fighter. Fighter's like the definition of mid. He's good at the start of the run, but he falls off super hard. He's not something that you're really changing your run around, though. There's no one re-rolling because of Fighter, I don't think. I hope not. Don't do that. Gardener's strong. Gardener's spell makes it really hard to die to the first boss. Troll, maybe, but if you put 1 poison out on a Bramble or on an Alpha, they will die eventually. It's unlikely that they're gonna outpace you unless your curse is really bad, so there's a lot of value in Gardener. Dabble's mid. Dabble was a lot better when Mage had a 4 mana spell, because Dabble Mage was super OP. Now it's kind of whatever. You don't really cast your spells that often, and your blue and red are doing enough to that they don't need Dabble's help to make mana, and 1 mana is not enough for burst, so you're usually just like overflowing mana to the next turn and going, well, this is like half a burst for the future. Kind of sucks. But no X's is nice, so there's that at least. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention at the start of this. I'm not going to be ranking the greens whatsoever. I will rank one of the greens, actually. I will rank House Cat. Otherwise, I'm not going to rank the greens at all, because I don't have a lot of opinions. I played a little bit of Magical on this streak, but it was mostly basic, so I don't have strong feelings about the greens. You can argue in the comments if you like. This is Healer. I think Healer's good. Healer's like right on the cusp as well between strong and mid. It doesn't matter a ton. I could divide this into 2 tiers of good and bad, more or less, but I think Healer is a little bit above average because you don't have any X's and your worst case is 2 healing. So you can always roll down for the good mana on this character, which is good. What's your name? Your name's Hoarder. Hoarder's like the strongest starter. He always hits 2 damage. He's super good. Not a lot to be said. So House Cat is going to get a ranking here. I'm not going to rank anyone else, but House Cat's strong. House Cat is super good in Magical, because that's the only comp I play with greens is Magical. Some people said they played Mountain and it was okay. I will maybe test it out in the future, but House Cat's just really good, because House Cat stops you from having to play the shitty greens, which is the funny reason why House Cat is good. But House Cat is actually good because Magical is strongest once you get to 2 tier 3s. Once you get your first blue and your first red, that comp starts to really pop off, and House Cat gets you there. House Cat lets you force the pick of your blue, so you never get stuck on like Ghast or Artificer, and it's super important in Magical that you get a good blue, because like your whole run is revolving around it. So I want to give a special shout out to House Cat in this video, the only green I'm going to be ranking. Initiate's mid. The good news about Initiate is you can't die to Bramble, and I think that's fine. The bad news about Initiate is that you're going to be making almost no mana out of this character on average. So that's the downside. Just keep 2 mana in Bramble and you can never die to that boss, which is nice. Who's next? This is Lazy. Lazy's weak. He's just bad. There's not much to be said. He only has 2 sides, and only one of those sides does damage, so the thing is you have to just keep his 3 shield even if you want to do damage, and you have to keep his damage if you want to do shield because you're unlikely to hit what you want. So this character sucks. I would not I would not recommend him. Lost, I think, is strong. Probably the only orange I'm willing to give strong to. Oranges kind of suck, though, is the thing. This character's not great, but she's fine. Poison is good, and the cruel damage lets you finish out enemies nicely. The issue is that this unit has 3 HP, and that is really bad. Very not good. Okay, Mage is strong. Mage has great mana. 2 2s. And poke is nice to have. But generally speaking, I think that Cultist is a little bit better, but Mage is good. I'd be happy to start every run with Mage. Now, Meddler is a point of hot contention. I know that. You know that. There's been wars fought over Meddler. People have lost their life over this character. People hate this character. People love this character. I am, I think, now ready to give my objective opinion. No one's argued with me about this character in a long time, so I don't feel like I have to go to bat for it or anything. People have mostly moved on, and I think I can finally give you a very clear answer on Meddler. I think Meddler is super mid. Sorry, I accidentally dropped it in strong. I think Meddler is really mid. So Meddler is good, but there's like so many asterisks on this character that you have to keep in mind that I think it brings it down. One thing is that as the run goes later, especially if your team is weak, Meddler has a chance to grief you. People will talk about like, oh, well, I died in the first fight or the second fight because Meddler just kept making bones. You needed to stop rerolling. What actually happens with Meddler is you get a string of not very good picks, and then in fight 8 you fight something hard like 3 witches or Slime Queen, and Meddler just chokes out 3 bones, and suddenly you're just like so far behind because you don't have the damage to keep up. That's where Meddler is actually really bad, and I think you want to get rid of this character as quickly as you can. But in the early game, this is very consistent. You make a lot of mana, and bones aren't going to kill you. But once you get into more threatening fights, the added pressure of bones starts putting deaths where there shouldn't be deaths. So keep that in mind. Although actually Meddler is pretty good into 3 witches because killing from 3 is strong in that fight. But generally speaking, like, you're never rerolling because of this character. You're not taking a new team. However, the most important asterisk here, this is super, super important. Make sure you're listening to this. If you pick Meddler, or if you have Meddler on your starting team, you cannot take any HP increases at the start of the run. Plus, like, monster HP 4 ruins this character. Meddler is balanced so finely that you will just lose. Like, there's no counterplay. You can't keep up anymore. So that's important to know. Who's next? This is Mystic. Mystic is like weak, but fine. I don't know, like the top of weak, I think. This is the all sides are 1 mana. That isn't very good. The reason but it's fine. The problem with Mystic is her spell is completely useless. Gaze sucks. So I would not pick this, or I would not, again, wouldn't reroll over this because I just need to make sure I emphasize that. But this character is on the weaker side for sure. Low HP as well. Prodigy. People say Prodigy is weak. I don't actually believe it. I kind of think Prodigy's just mid. Because Prodigy has the same sort of throughput that Splint has, and Splint's going to end up in a high tier. But I don't know. I don't think Prodigy's that bad. 3 mana is a lot of mana. You just have to hit it, and your odds aren't that bad of missing. But sometimes he goes XXX, 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 and that's pretty bad. But I don't know. I think it doesn't happen enough to be like angry at this character over. Ruffian's mid. He's like fine. 5 damage. You need someone who can shield him ideally. He's really bad with Alloy, but conversely, he's really good with Dabbler, but it's not really something that you're thinking about too much. He's like fine. I don't know. You just make sure you're not rolling down his 1s when you can't play the 5. That's something I find myself doing a lot. I'll be like, oh, I don't want this 1 damage. Like, that's it. It's just 1 damage. I don't want this 1 damage. But you're rolling, and the only other thing you can hit is 5, and then he dies. You don't want to be sacrificing Ruffian. It's not very good. You can approach this game with the mindset of taking 0 deaths, and you can come pretty close to always taking 0 deaths. This is Scoundrel. Scoundrel is really bad. In 2.0, I was coming around. I was actually going to bat for Scoundrel. This character is fucking terrible. The impact of 1 damage to all and 1 damage vulnerable is very low, and you're just rolling X's a lot of the time. This character sucks a lot. I really do not want to start with Scoundrel. That's most of them. Who's left? Oh, this is Splint. Splint is strong, I think. Bandage is a very good spell. Heal 1, shield 1 to 3 targets is very good. And 3 mana, 2 mana are both very strong. The rest of her sides are whatever. 1 mana is okay, and the 5 heals are... Sometimes you just lock them because they're good, and they give you decent value, right? You go like, oh, well, if I lock this 5, then I can roll everyone else down because the rest of my team lives, and that's okay. But for the most part, I think Splint is just very strong. We got Student. Student is our weak blue. Student is really bad. He's fucking terrible. His spell is very hard to cast and useless, and so all this character really does is either shield 1, not very good, or reuse, which tier 1 is pretty bad because most of your sides suck. So Student is just awful. Hate this guy a lot. He's always been, I might overhate him, I've always hated Student. He's like my fucking greatest enemy. Thief goes here. Thief is like the definition of whatever. You do 2 damage every turn, sometimes you X out, but it's not super common. 4 HP is sad. If this character had 5 HP, they would probably be strong. But as is, just kind of mid. And lastly is Wallop. I think Wallop is actually mid. My original content for this game, when I was making early tier lists, I thought Wallop was really strong. This character is not very good at keeping your team alive, and I want to live in the early game. So, yeah. Oh, I did miss one, didn't I? I knew I was gonna miss one, and I always miss him too. Where is he? This fucking guy, Squire. I don't know. Squire is also mid. He's so mid, I forget he exists. That's how I feel about Squire. Generally speaking, you just kind of lock his 2 shield redirect and pray he doesn't end up dying. But he struggles a lot with not dying. But anyway, Wallop is just kind of bad at keeping your team alive, and I think in general is just a damage output character. So yeah, this is how the tier 1s shake out in my opinion. You get a nice little 1 from every class except for fucking Clumsy Scoundrel, the oranges are hell. Don't reroll based on your starting team, but make a note of your starting team being like Student, Scoundrel, Lazy, Alloy, Mystic, right? If you get a starting team like that, you need to be a little more careful with your curse selection, a little more conservative in the early game, because you're going to be weaker, especially if you are rolling X's. So yeah, but just a little primer, because this matters more in the curses video, which I'll be doing tomorrow. This is like, it is important to know when your team is weak for bad curses. Okay, and now I'm going to pause and I'm going to reset and change the tiers, and I will be back momentarily. Okay, so here we are. This is a much different version of this tier list than I've ever done in the past, but my philosophy in how you play this game has shifted a ton since the last time I talked about this game, and I want to shout out somewhere in my content. I want to shout out the Unfair Win Streak guys, the book club guys, specifically Japanese Export. He is the person who actually shifted my entire mindset. I was watching Cranberry's stream, Slice and Dice, and Japanese Export was there and he was talking in the chat, and a lot of the things he said, which were basically just like, you can play to not die and HP is a really good stat, things like that shifted how I understood this game and have led me to win 89 runs in a row and 98 out of 100 hard runs. So I wanted to give a shout out to the Unfair guys as a whole, because I'm sure they all came together to form that opinion. That has changed how I approach this game and is why I feel I have succeeded where I used to have trouble. And through that, it has changed how I approach picking characters. Before, I ranked these in like an item dependent sort of way or things like that. This is now very simple. I think there are 3 tiers. There's the good, the not that good, and the death tier. There are going to be, I believe, 5 characters in the death tier. Well, that's not true. 5 tier 3s. I don't know how many characters in total there are going to be in the death tier, but the death tier characters are the characters you are thinking about at all times, and you are basically never rerolling unless you're looking at 2 characters from that tier. I want to make sure I make a note though, there are going to be exceptions like that. A good example is like, sometimes, this is the best example I can give you. Sometimes you're going to walk into Fight 4, right? Your starting team is going to be some semblance of characters from the not very good tier, and you're going to be looking at your first pick having been not great. It's going to be some like, not even not great, but it's going to be someone who's like kind of mid and a defensive character. You're going to be looking at like Disciple, or I don't know, maybe you get like fucking Glacia for your blue, for example, right? Who is good, but for the purposes of understanding this, you have to think about it like this, right? You're going to be looking at something like that, and your starting team is going to have not very good damage, and your next pick is going to be something like Gambler versus Monk, right? Now, if you go purely based off of the tier list, you're going to pick Monk there every time. But the reality is, if your team's damage output is low, you might need to just click on Gambler. You don't want to click on Gambler, but if your damage output is so low that you might just not have it, you might have to take Gambler and think to yourself, okay, well, I have this defensive team comp setup, I have a lot of survivability built in, I can take Gambler, and we can just live long enough for Gambler to hit some 5s. You're going to miss a lot, but it's going to be better than randoming there or taking monk, because if you random, you could random into another defensive character and then just sit there with no damage output and get rolled by the troll. So I need to make sure I give you that scenario. This is not a definitive tier list, and you cannot go 1-to-1 off of this tier list. You need to be thinking about things and understanding why they are strong when they're strong, because everything in this game has a time. I think every single unit in this game, except for Tainted, has a time where you can click them. And you need to be thinking about that. And probably, I guess, Vessel as well by that logic. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let's begin. Also, I have an extra tier here, which is the GOAT tier. I have one specific character I'm going to be throwing up there, which you can take your guesses at. I will say this, through my last 100 runs, plus the 36 unfair runs, one character maintained a 100% pick rate. And I am going to give them a special tier. So think about that as a little game. Let's begin. So in the death tier, we're going to start off with Ace. Ace is bad. There's one case where I think Ace is good, and that is if you're playing a top or bot blank, because he is unaffected. So where Warlock loses half of his really good mana output, Ace is unaffected. Ace is still not good. The big thing you have to understand about this character is that boosting aside is bad. So his first boost is good at 1 mana. Every boost after that is less effective in damage output than burst, unless you are putting it onto like a quad hit side. So just be aware. This character, you often are better off just spending your mana on burst, but if you have ways to cover his X's, he's okay. You really, really want to be thinking about him though, because in the average run, you are not going to be able to accommodate Ace, and he's just gonna brick your damage output super hard. Next up is Agent. Agent is good. Agent is run winning if you can increase her quad use even once, and Agent is just good otherwise, because 4 damage is about what your other oranges are going to be doing, and 3 damage shifter is often game winning. I lost my streak to Agent. Well, not really. I lost my streak because I picked Agent in a situation where it was bad, but it's not that big of a deal. It is a learning experience, and I still think Agent is very good. Again, I'm not going to be ranking the greens. Alien does not exist to me. So the next character is Armorer. Armorer is not great. He is right on the borderline between not great and death. This character has really bad shield throughput. So if you have a team full of characters who do not use his Smith, he is a bad character. He's down here. But I think on average, your gray isn't so impactful that I would random off of this guy. So I think he goes in not great as a whole. Artificer is not great. He's not the end of the world. 4 mana is good, and Artificer pairs very well with the reds who need mana, like Witch is really happy to see Artificer, because now you have great salve throughput. Shaman likes him a lot. So he's okay for those cases. He's also really good with certain items like Stasis and Blindfold make him super, super strong. The main problem is that his spell is bad. Blades is really useless into bosses except for Inevitable, so he's kind of not good. You know what? I'm actually going to make an extra tier here, because I think that there is like, I need 1 row below. I'm thinking about it now, because Ace is actually not supposed to be here. This is the super death tier. This is like the you really, really don't want to pick this, but there's at least a little bit of a use case. This is the real tier. This is the actual like hard avoid. I think these are the 0%ers in my opinion, which I think there's only a few of. Anyway, Assassin is fine. It's like, I would say good actually. Assassin is like super mid, but brings poison, so isn't worthless into bosses, and brings consistent 4 damage through 2 damage engage, which is also nice. So I'm not mad to play Assassin, but I'm not hyped up to play Assassin. But I would still say good over not great. Barbarian's good. In my spreadsheet, my original writing, I wrote this like super long point about Barbarian, which is like, he's kind of complicated to explain, because you're just like, you know, you're trading HP for tempo. Doing damage is good. Barbarian is good as a result. Super Death. This is for Bard. Yeah, I made this tier pretty much entirely for Bard. I think that there is no case for Bard. This Super Death tier is going to be the characters that I think almost have absolutely no redeeming qualities. I know I said every character has a use case. I don't know what Bard's is. This character is like a never, ever, ever play this guy. He's so bad. He is, when you are pressing random on your tier 2, this is the ghost in the back of your mind. You are thinking to yourself, oh fuck, what if I get Bard? That is what you are thinking to yourself. And I might end up just combining these two tiers depending on how it shakes out. I haven't done this one ahead of time, so I'm not super sure. But yeah, Bard is really, really bad. Bash is not great. He is okay if you have Eye Patch, because then his 7, and he's also okay with Blindfold because his 7 and his 5 become good, but the force targeting on his heavies and the exert on his 7 are really not very good. So I think as a whole, this guy is kind of just not great. The yellow pick is super good. There's so many really powerful yellows, and ending up with Bash feels awful. Berserker's good. Doing damage in the mid game is good. He's a little annoying to keep alive, but not super bad, and his Deathwish side becomes very good as the fight goes on. So, solid. And Brawler's also good. Brawler is just like, he shows up to work, he hits his 3 damages, he's really hard to displace for the enemies, and in the end game, you can just kind of live for a long time and then let him hit steel and one-shot bosses potentially. It's like a nice little out to have, so he's sort of like a yellow version of Weaver. Shows up and does okay, and then eventually just blows something away. But with less setup required. Brute's good. He's fine damage output. He's hard to kill with his 2 damage self-shields. Solid guy. Caldera's good. Really good mana throughput. This is the only 6 HP character I think is actually worth their 6 HP, because Caldera's throughput is so high. 2 mana and 1 damage mana gain and 3 damage cruel. Really strong, and his spell is great. Just an excellent character. I give Captain not great. I think that he's like, this is where it gets kind of hard to like just put things into this straight up tier. What you need to understand is that you have to have a damage source, and Captain is not a damage source. Captain is a nice little supporting character. He's really good if you can press fucking, it's formation. If you can press that shit consistently, he's very good. He needs specific characters to go with him to help him press formation, but if you have it, it's pretty solid. The thing is that the characters that are good for helping him press formation are characters that can give you 3 damage sides, and not a lot of characters do that, and none of the characters that I think are like really good do that. So you have to pick Captain first over something that's bad, and then you have to realize like, okay, my damage output's kind of bad, I need to be greedy on my orange and my blue to make sure I get something good to go with that. Like, for example, Kronos, he's fine, he's not great, but he's better than, like, if you have Kronos Captain, your damage output is going to really heavily rely on your orange, or else you're just not going to have the damage to kill bosses. That's the sort of thing you need to be thinking about. But Kronos is fine. He brings on-demand weaken. The problem is that he's really bad at hitting on-demand weaken until later turns where his growth has really scaled up. But the other problem with Kronos is his best side is his reuse side, so a lot of times you're just not making mana with him. But he's still, like, not terrible. He's just not great. Who's next? Cleric is good. I think Cleric struggles if the fights go long. Really, really bad into things like Lich and Baron. Oh, Baron's actually fine, but like Lich and Basalt if you have her that long, because fights go long and then she runs out of mana. But that being said, still good. Good through the hallways. The problem this character faces is your damage or your shielding output is really low and inconsistent. Mainly. I think Collector is super death. This character is so bad. People have written me so many comments. There's like a fucking Collector army out there talking about this guy. The biggest problem with Collector is when you have Collector, you don't have one of the better yellows. And his damage output is offensively bad. He has 1 damage cleave and 1 damage focus, which are terrible. They do almost nothing. You're going through hoops to do as much damage as Soldier does. You have he has a duplicate, I think, which is really bad. Let me go look at his side. This character is really, really bad. You need to really, he has a 1 damage duplicate. That side is offensively bad. That shit is just horrific. He does have 3 pretty okay sides. 2 damage self shield is good. 2 damage growth is his best side, and 2 damage death wish is good. But he has 3 just absolute horrors. So don't play this guy. If you do get stuck on Collector, what you should do is roll down for growth every turn, and just pray you can make him into a real character. Curator's good. The big thing about Curator is you need to have something that can really handle not really handle, you need something that can give Curators charged and steal value. The good news is that the best character for that is Poet, and Poet is like great. So you'll want to play those together anyway. Keeper's also fine. I wanna change the name of this tier. I'm gonna call this the horror. Yeah, I'll call this the horror. That's better. I'm gonna press enter and then I'm gonna not press enter, and I need to change the color. I'm gonna freak. There we go. Better. Okay. Anyway, and I think with this mindset, I might actually move this guy down to death. Now that I've changed how I'm doing it with Bard, this looks more correct to me. Yeah. Okay. Where am I? I am on... sorry, I was just finishing up with Curator. Curator is like... he's fine, ultimately. He's pretty good, but if you don't have something that's good for his steal or his mana, his charged, he's kind of weaker, but still you have no X's, so strong nonetheless. But not like super game winning without Poet or Keeper locked in. This is Dabbler. Dabbler is good. The big thing about tier 2 oranges is that they are in general kind of weak. There's not a very good tier 2 orange, so Dabbler is probably the best tier 2 orange. You don't get great damage output, but you get super high consistency and 9 HP. That's good. 2 mana is very good, 2 damage is very good, 3 damage is very good, and the rest of her sides are whatever. The shields are like not really what you want your orange doing, but they're nice. Better than X's. Now Dabblist, conversely, is going to go into not great. Tier 3 oranges have a little bit of a higher curve, I think. Not a great higher curve, but this character also only has 9 HP, where 9 HP on a tier 2 is crazy. 9 HP on a tier 3? What the hell, man? What's up with that? So I think Dabbler is just kind of not great, and still better than the worst of the worst. That's what you need to keep in mind, is you don't want to be like, oh man, well I'm gonna reroll because there's Dabblist here. Nah, of course not. But Dabblist is just kind of not great. Dancer is also not great. Not super happy to play Dancer, but the 1 damage rampage is solid. 1 damage to all rampage is good. And that Dancer is fine if the rest of your team is good. Dancer is worse if the rest of your team is bad, and Dancer is fucking terrible into Hexia. But conversely, very good into the hand. Just not as good as some of the other cantrip characters are, because doing 2 damage randomly is not as good as doing 2 mana. But yeah, I think that Dancer is just like not great, not the worst. Where am I? This is Dice, so this is Disciple. I like Disciple a lot. The reds in tier 2 have a bit of a split. Not between the ones that make mana and the ones that don't, actually. It's a split between the ones that are good at healing and the ones that are bad at healing. Usually, you either get a character that's good at healing or good at making mana. Disciple is good at both. You can either heal 4 or make 2 mana. And Disciple makes it so that if you roll a bunch of X's, you don't lose, because you can just glow, and if you are landing on an X, you should press glow, as long as you have the mana for it, because 1 mana for 2 shield and 2 heal is super good. 1 second, I'm gonna take a little water break. I need to pace myself here. Please hold. Okay, ready. Where am I? I'm on Disciple. Yeah, I'm finished with Disciple. I don't have anything else to say about this character. Doctor is good. Doctor is probably the best tier 3 red at this point. I think that it's not probably. Doctor's really, really broken. The thing that is, there's 2 things that are good about Doctor. One of them is that Doctor is a good character if you picked an item for roulette. You can just play Doctor anyway, because then like you pick roulette items and then you don't get roulette. You go, well, hey, here's Doctor, and then you cover up his bad side. Doctor's 2 heal regen is super good. His 2 heal mana gain is standard for a tier 2 red or tier 3 red, and his spell is super broken. Liquor is OP. Heal 10 cleanse is so nuts at 3 mana. This character was kind of mid in 2.0 when that was, I think it was 4 mana back then. At 3 mana, oh my god, this guy's so good. What a guy. One little quick trick about Doctor is if you have like a 4 weaken incoming and your character's at say like 6 HP, what you should do if you have 3 mana is not Liquor immediately. You should Liquor on the next turn, because the 4 damage or the 4 weaken incoming can be, it'll go through, you'll heal to full from the Liquor, and if they have any more incoming status effects, you can double dip on the cleanse. Just a note, don't do that on cantrip characters though. Like if it's a 4 weaken going to Sorcerer, just fucking cleanse them. Druid's good. Very consistent. Basically always throughputs 2. Either 2 mana, 2 damage, 2 shield. The growth is good. Balance is kind of a mid spell, but it's not too bad. Eccentric is a horror. This guy is so bad. He's actually irredeemable. You could show me the best Eccentric of all time. You could show me your fucking leather gloves, boar hide bracers Eccentric going crazy with his 6 damage descends, and he's still just worse than Barbarian. So, this character sucks a lot, and he's 8 HP. Oh my god, he's so bad. Holy, he's so bad. He's so bad. I have to emphasize, he's so bad. Like, he's significantly worse than every other really bad character because he's taking away what is probably the best character on your team in your yellow, and he's getting replaced with fucking garbage. Oh my god, he's so bad. Oh. This is Enchanter. Enchanter is not very good either. I actually don't think I would put Enchanter in the absolute bottom tier. Would I? Yeah, I would. Enchanter is absolute garbage. This character is so bad. The problem is that Flip is not very good because you're paying 2 mana to just fix your bad rolls, and the better play is to roll better. Which sounds like a joke, but you should probably just be locking things so you're not trying to play through Flip. What I will say for Enchanter is that Enchanter is very good with Sparky, and if you got stuck on Gambler for some reason, you can pick this character with Gambler. If you have, like, very strong left-sided characters, Enchanter becomes a little bit better, probably out of this tier and here, if you have those characters. The problem is that outside of Sparky, those characters are not good. You don't want to play Evoker, you don't want to play Gambler, so you're not going to be playing them too often. But yeah, and also the rest of Enchanter's sides are really bad. I think that let me make sure what she has. I think it's changed. She has the add engage. That side sucks, and the heal shield enchant is also very bad. Yeah, this character sucks a lot. I'm sure of this placement. Speaking of bad, Evoker is death. He's not the end of the world, and he's the same as Ace. He's good in the top Bob Blank runs, but this character is going to disappoint you. That's just kind of how it is. He's not good. He's going to roll a lot of X's. He needs a lot of support from the rest of your team. You need, like, Spellblade and a really good mana from your blue or your red, and probably also Cleric to even think about this guy, because yeah, just don't pick him. One other thing though, by the way, if you're like a big Evoker apologist and you like him a lot, one thing you should note is that he's really bad into any of the add enemy curses except for like add sniper, because added enemies go to the top and soak drop for you. So like suddenly instead of dropping on an important enemy, you're dropping on a wolf or a goblin. But he is kind of good to sneak past snipers if you took add sniper, which I think is a tier 5 anyways, so you're probably not playing that. Yeah, this character is not good. Where am I? I'm on E for Evoker, which puts us on F for Fate. Fate is good. Fate makes good mana. Strand is good. The end. Oh, Fate also has this really good item at the tier 8, like super good item in Tusk, where you get +2 to her heal shield sides. Solid. Super solid. Fencer's good. Game-winning character. High damage output. Really good with almost every item in the tier 8s. Like, there's mana items, defensive items, and damage items. Fencer holds almost every damage tier 8 and tier 9 very well. And obviously doesn't hold mana or defensive very well. But yeah, this character's great. Really good. Faye is awful. Just horrible. I think I picked Faye once, and here's what happened. I walked into Wendigo, and this character had a +11 standing on her. She was taking 16 damage. That was not livable. She's 5 HP is just offensive, and her spell is not very good, and her sides are kind of mid. You can play Faye if you have, like, I don't know, you need someone who really wants to be boosted. Like, you need something crazy for this character to be good. It's terrible. Just avoid. Fiend is also very bad. He doesn't have good HP. 6 HP is bad, and he has 3 and 2 mana pain. So he just kind of explodes. He dies so fast, and his spell deals damage to you. If you're trying to live, hurting yourself is not good. So don't play Fiend. Oh, also, one of the big things about Fiend in 2.0 is Monster Pristine was a very common curse, and he's great into that curse. That curse is bad now because golems are in the game, and you don't see it very often. So, yeah, this guy's bad. Forsaken, I think Forsaken is the worst of the tier 3 reds, and it would be disingenuous to put Forsaken in the death tier. This character is just not great. The thing about tier 3 reds is that they are all good, or at least not bad. Forsaken is the worst tier 3 red, and she does not go below the second from the top. This character is fine. She's really good into Hexia. The problem that you face with Forsaken, though, is that when you have good value out of Forsaken, your run is in a bad place. You don't want to be playing Revive 3. You don't want to be doing Heal. I mean, Heal 2 to all is fine, but like Bind is not super good if you're taking so much damage that you have to think about playing Bind for 3 mana. So you ideally are just in a better spot, but you know, she's okay. She does 3 damage. She's not a bad first pick, and she has high HP, so could be worse. Gambler is a horror. If you have a top and bot side replacer, you can play this character. Like if you have Worn Arms or Longbow, this character is not bad then, but otherwise you are avoiding this at all costs. I am mostly ranking these based on my like intuitive feeling about these characters, by the way, which is mainly just how often did I see this character in a position they were pickable. So there's a little bit of a skew here, but I think that 1 to 2 items making Gambler good does not mean that Gambler is good. I think that means that those items are niche at best. So this character sucks a lot. Like a lot. Where am I? I'm on Ghast. Now, Pun Pun is out there. He's the fucking Ghast defender, dude. And I am not with it. The 2 damage weaken stick is okay, but not very good. And this character just doesn't do anything. Man, Harvest is a super good spell. Kill an enemy from 1 and give yourself 3 mana. But this character is just so useless. You don't have anything to do. He doesn't really support well. He's like stalling the enemies, but at that point I'd rather just have Glacia. That's the problem. This character is just kind of worse at his output than Glacia is. So yeah, I think you should do what you can to avoid this guy. I played him once. I had what did I have? I had Stasis and I had Boarhide Bracer, so I had 4 damage weakens that didn't go away, and he was okay. I picked him into Hexia. He did an okay job of stopping her from doing anything, but just don't play him. Even if you get value out of the 5 mana side, don't play him, because there's just nothing to do with it. Glacia is good, I think. Tier 2 blues are very bad. not very bad. There's this like hard line in the middle of the tier 2 blues, and Glacia is above that line. This character is fine. She does an okay job, but she doesn't do any damage, and that's what you need to be thinking about, is that you don't do any damage if you pick Glacia. Next up is Jester. Jester is death. He's not quite a horror beyond comprehension. He is just not very good. He makes the rest of your team more consistent. His biggest problem is that he has 6 HP, but if you can replace his top and bot side, he's not bad. 3 mana is a very good side, and his reroll means he hits it more often. He can dodge as well, which he hits fairly often, but he's just a little too inconsistent to be worth playing. And he doesn't do any damage. Flick is not a great spell. This is Juggler. When I first saw Juggler with the changes, I thought Juggler was super broken. And now I just think Juggler is fine. Decent, right? Good damage output. If you roll a 2 damage knife, you lock a 2 damage knife. That is the game plan with Juggler. And you let her do her damage. She's okay. Nothing too crazy. If you are someone out there who's like, man, I keep going Caltrop X, Caltrop, Caltrop X, Caltrop, you need to shift your opinion. This game is not about the results you get, and you are not unluckier than the rest of us. You are just like, luck is... Rather, my favorite saying about Slice and Dice these days, randomness never looks random. You will just sometimes go 9 Caltrops straight. It can happen, and you're gonna go, man, this shit's fixed, right? Nah. You can't let that cloud your judgment, or you're going to be worse at this game as a result. Oh, I see. That's what pin images does. I don't want them pinned. I guess that's kind of nice. Whatever. Anyway, just a little RNG thought for you. Keep that in mind when you're thinking about characters like this. Keeper is very good. Not the goat, though. Keeper is... There's another line in the tier 3 grays. There's Keeper and Poet, who I have like a 70 or an 80% pick rate on with both. And then there's Paladin and everyone else who are at like 30% and below. Keeper is very good. Steel Shield is strong and keeps your characters alive, and Keeper is very good at just picking one character and saying, you don't die now. So, yeah. And up next is Knight. Knight is the GOAT. 100% pick rate, 29 out of 29. Pun Pun gave me his pick rate as well on his last few streaks, and it's like 47 out of 48 or something like that. Let me go look. He wrote it down somewhere for me. He's super good, like way, way, way too strong. Yeah, Pun Pun out of 158 games has 45 out of 46. He has a 98% pick rate on Knight. I don't say this in this game because I think that everything has context. I think that there is no context where the Knight is bad. He is a perfect character. It is incredible. He is so much better than every other Gray. It's unfair to the rest of the Grays. I don't want to spend all my time fucking gushing about Knight, but like he does everything. His parry spell or his tactic is super good. Being able to convert 2 damage into 3 shield is broken. He gets to just swing 3 damage exerts in fights where you need front-loaded damage, and he has 3 shield steal. This guy's the GOAT. He's unbelievably strong. Just absolutely unbelievably strong. God, and I have to go from Knight to fucking Leader. Leader is death. He's not good, and he's taking away your yellow, but he isn't as bad as people think. If you have Agent, if you have Wizard, if you have someone who uses his Smith side well, Leader is okay. You don't want to play him, but it is fine to play him if the other pick isn't an absolute bottom tier, because you can work around it. So I do not think that he is quite so bad. This character is death. This is an absolute horror. Ludus is a 0 out of 0 or a 0 out of 100. There's almost no case for Ludus. The only thing for Ludus is like you picked Leader early or someone like that. Like you have a bad yellow and then you have like Poison Dip or something like that, copycat collar maybe, and you just need someone who can hold it, who has numbers. This character is so bad on average that the case that this character is good is something is wrong in your run. Yeah. But this is Medic. I think Medic is actually a horror. I think this character is really bad. The tier 3 reds have a few really bad characters. Medic's big problem is that it's not very good to do heal to cleave. It's a great side when it's good, but sometimes it's just not very good. And Medic's spell is not very good, and her mana gain is not very good. Like she has 2 X's. If this character had a like one more side, even if it wasn't a great side on the right side, I would probably talk a little bit nicer. But healing in the mid game is kind of suspicious and not super good, so I don't love it. Where am I? I'm on Monk. Monk is good. He has a lot of HP. 3 shield redirect is good. He has the ability to do 1 damage repel, which is nice. 2 cleanses, okay, if you hit it. Solid character. Nothing really wrong with this guy. Maiko is not great. He is like just at the cutoff of bad tier 2 blues. So the bad tier 2 blues are Evoker, Jester, and Fiend. This guy is just barely out of the pit. I think that if these 3 characters were better, Maiko would be here. But the big thing about Maiko is you don't end up with one of the shitters, so he gets to be a little bit above as a result. Ninja is death. Ninja is like borderline, but not quite unpickable. The thing about Ninja is she has the 2 damage twice side, which is good. It's like playing Gambler, but with less HP. I've seen people ask me, if Copycat's so good and Copycat Collar is broken, why is Ninja not good? And the problem with Ninja is that tier 2s don't have a lot to copycat. Like, what are you copycatting off of your yellow? Self-shield? Boring. The best thing for Ninja to copycat is, I guess, mana gain, but that's not true actually. The best thing for Ninja to copycat, and one of the other things that saves her from the bottom tier, is steal. You know who has a really good steal shield side? Yeah, that's Knight. So she pairs super well with Knight, which is nice, but pairing her with like cantrips is bad. Pairing her with mana gain is kind of hard because there's not a lot of mana gain in the mid game. But if you have characters that can pair well with Ninja, she's fine, and she's probably not worth randoming. The real issue is that this character's damage output at the start of the run is horrible. You are averaging 1s, which is just awful. So this character ends up not being very good. Paladin, he's not great. I don't know, he's okay, and I would not reroll over picking Paladin, but a lot of times the other character is just a better, more impactful pickup. He has a lot of HP, and he's one of the characters that plays really, really well with Captain because he has a bunch of 4 damage heavies. But generally, I think this guy is not very good. But he's not like run losingly bad. So it's still fine. Like that's something you need to understand. These characters are not going to lose you the run if you end up picking them. These characters are like situationally okay, but probably not very good. Sometimes you have to pick them, right? These are the characters you're trying to avoid. You want to do everything in your power to not end up on one of these. And like Gast, you could maybe move up here, but I doubt. Just a little bit of context for you though. Like Paladin is still, I would never reroll Paladin, but he's just not great. He's not the best of the Greys. Pilgrim also I think is not great. He is just kind of like, the problem with Pilgrim is that he's not good if your team needs him to be more active, right? If you have someone who's doing like low damage, this guy has a lot of trouble helping them live. It comes down to his stuns, and if he gets hit, he has a lot of trouble as well. His biggest flaw is he can't help himself. He has a lot of HP, so he can just kind of live through it, but he's really bad at keeping himself alive, which is kind of sad. But overall, he ends up being just not great. I would not skip him. I'm not trying to reroll off of him, but he's not my favorite pickup. Poet is good. Very, very good. Definitely I think the best of the tier 2 or tier 3 Greys. I like him a little more than Keeper. He's just kind of nuts. He has everything. He even has a tactic or a spell. He's super good. Love Poet. Alright, I'm on Priestess. I think Priestess is probably not great. She's okay. Heal 4 Vitality and Pray are super good. But this character really needs your blue to make sure they have mana on lock for her, or else you can't pray. Oh hey, did I miss one? I did miss one. What the heck? I missed Herbalist. Sorry, I just looked here and was like, wait, that's Herbalist. Anyway, I missed a few actually. I skipped ahead on accident. My bad, my bad. I'll go back. I don't know how I skipped ahead. Probably when I took the water break. Anyway, Priestess is good though. Like very, very good. Not very good. She's just not that bad. That's what I'm trying to say. She's good if you're good with praying and healing for vitality, but the rest of her sides are kind of mid. So I lost my train of thought there and then forgot what I was saying. Started thinking about fucking Gladiator. Speaking of which, Gladiator is very good. You want to hear something crazy? My most picked tier 2 yellow is Gladiator after the 100 runs. He's good. He's hard to kill with his 2 damage self shields. He has the ability to do 4 with his engage, and he can just shield one of your allies, which I value a little higher than I used to. So Gladiator ends up being maybe the best tier 2 yellow. The thing is, the tier 2 yellows are like there's 6 good tier 2 yellows and then there's 2 really bad ones. So you kind of just end up doing what you can to avoid the 2 really bad ones. Anyway, Herbalist is also good. I mean, you're never randoming off of Herbalist. She's just not like the tier 1 absolute insane goat she used to be. She's good if you end up on worst though. Really, really good if you end up stuck on the worst curse. Yeah, makes 2 mana. The rest of her sides are whatever. Sometimes you get to play like add growth with Agent, which is cool. But I wouldn't think too hard about this character. Let me reassess where I am. I am here. Prince is so bad. You don't need me to tell you that. He is just horrific. 3 X's and his tactic needs an X. You need to have a lot of things go right for Prince to cast his tactic, and then his tactic only does 15. Which 15 is a super awkward number because in hallway fights, it's not much. You're really like overkilling. In bosses, it's not enough. It's very strange. He's like, this tactic needed to be like all 5 of your dice come together and he just kills a target, but that would have been OP. So I don't know. One thing I will say about Prince, I think he is better if you're playing greens because greens suck and they roll a lot of X's. Also, you have access to Twin, and I think there's a world, if everything goes right, where you get 2 Unites off through Twin, but a lot has to go right. Yeah, I mean, I don't need to spend too much time on this. Just generally, I think this guy sucks. He is like a 0%er, for sure. Some of these characters have had like 1% or like 1 pick rate. I think Enchanter has 2. This character is a 0. I think Medic is a little lost in this here. I'll think about it. Anyway, Prophet's good. Makes good mana. Her spell is a little whatever. A lot of times when you're spending mana on... what's it called? What is Prophet's spell called? It's not called Renew. Is it called Renew? It's called Soothe. When you're spending 4 mana on Soothe, you can usually spend that mana to just kill something instead. That's what I find. Like, by the time Soothe hits the critical escape velocity where you can't die anymore, the fight could have already been decided with how much mana you put into it. But there are some fights where that's not true. Inevitable, Troll King, you can just hit like 3 or 4 Soothes and then you live forever. And Heal 5 Vitality is also very strong. Ranger is not great. Ranger is not the end of the world, but 1 damage cleave, spreading damage is not good. You want to be killing specific targets, not spreading damage. So this character is effectively 2 sides unless you can buff the 1 damage cleave. Super mid. Rogue is good. I think Rogue is not as good as I used to think, but Poison is still strong and gets you through fights, and you have a dodge, and you have 2 damage cruel to just burst out enemies, so not the end of the world. Oh yeah, I need to make a special tier. Sorry, I forgot. How could I forget this? I even talked about this character. And I forgot to make the special tier. Roulette. Roulette gets her own tier. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit, sorry. And so I'm gonna put Roulette in this tier and we're gonna talk about it, and I'm gonna delete the tier because it makes the list look ugly. Roulette is unplayable if you don't have a left side replacer. I think that this character is in this tier if you don't have a way to cover up her left side, and is in this tier if you do. That's just how it goes. So I'm gonna end up with Roulette. The thing is, in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 items, you have a lot of options for left side replacers versus garbage, right? You're looking at like Seedling versus Tincture, for example. Of course you're gonna pick Seedling. You're just gonna take the 2 damage growth on the left side. It's not a great side, but you can put that on Roulette, and then this character is super good. But if you don't see it, this character is bad. So I'm gonna leave her in the horror tier. I think it doesn't really matter. This character can goes in her own tier. I just don't really want to. So yeah. Hey, did I miss Guardian? I think I just walked right past him, didn't I? I sure did. I think Guardian's not great. There was a lot of hype around this guy at the start, and he's like fine for a tier 2 gray, but he X's out a lot, and sometimes he just rolls cleave 1 when you needed shield 3, so he misses too often for me. And the problem is when a gray misses on a critical turn, someone dies. That's the issue. And he is just out of range. The 1 damage cleave, I think, does him in. If that 1 damage cleave was something a little more consistent, or if he just had like a 2 shield on his right side, I would play this character a lot more. But still, it's tough. Every gray kind of just gets flattened and pushed down because they're in the tier with the best character in the game. So, it's tough. Anyway, make sure I didn't miss anyone else. Oh, Scrapper. Here he is. Scrapper's good. He's better if your gray is good. The only thing you need to know is if you pick Scrapper, you want to avoid picking Pilgrim or Monk, and you want to try to avoid... I wouldn't say if you have Monk or Pilgrim, you avoid Scrapper, but if you have like an early Monk pick and you're shown Scrapper versus something like Fae, I would not random. I would pick Scrapper. You're just a little sad about it because the character is only the 2 bloodlust sides reasonably. But, you know. If you have Scrapper ahead of time, you just want to do what you can. Like, you don't want to settle on Pilgrim. So for example, if I have Scrapper and I'm looking at something like Pilgrim versus Ninja or Pilgrim versus Jester, I would consider picking one of these characters to extend my gray pick rate to hopefully pick up like Knight or Warden, something like that. So that's how you have to think about it for the strategizing there. Not super complicated, but worth noting. I was on Scrapper, so now we're on Seer. Seer's good. The blues kind of have this big divide, as I've been talking about. Seer is above the divide. 3 mana is enough to just kind of blow through a fight sometimes, and if it's not, and you're not dying, you can just foretell, and then that 3 mana is 4 mana, then that 4 mana can become 6 mana, and, you know, from there on. Shaman is not great. Not bad, not great. The spell is good. The problem with Shaman is that it's hard to cast her spell. Very good with someone who can help her cast her spell, because heal 2 cleave cleanse is very good at just breaking through a lot of trouble. And there's nothing else to be said. Just pretty good. But not as good. There's like the 4 tier 2, tier 3 reds that are really good. Doctor, Surgeon, Fate, and Prophet. they're very good because they do their healing job and they make mana. Doctor's the best because he makes mana consistently and has cleanse and does his healing job very well. So Shaman just comes in and is like, well, it's pretty good. You're always getting value out of the sides. 5 heal vitality is good, 3 shields good, 3 damage is good, 2 heal mana gains obviously good, 10 heals kind of, you know, whatever. And her spell is good, but she's not consistent, and that's what's troubling. Sharp Shot, not great. Tier 3 oranges kind of suck. I think I said this with Dablist as well. Sharp Shot doesn't do anything. Very low damage output, very low everything, really. But 2 damage copycat's fine, and this character isn't like terrible. You just, if you end up on Sharp Shot, you have to be a little more greedy to make sure that you actually have a winning line for the run. I think Sinew's good. 2 shield is fine, 4 damage is good. Sinew's fine. Not a lot to say, honestly. Same thing for Soldier. Soldier is like, hey, do you want to do 2 damage or 3 damage or 2 shield and never roll an X? Cool. Sinew, I will say he has some items that make him a lot better, like Blindfold as well, and things like that. But for the most part, it's just like, hey, 4 damage is really good. Kind of just trucks right through mid-game fights. Shield if you need it. As I value shield more, Sinew becomes better in my mind. I need to scroll down just a touch here so I can see everyone. This is Sorcerer. I'm going to give Sorcerer good. Sorcerer is good for one reason, the hand. I think that in most runs, the only thing is you need to be able to assess if you're safe to make it to the boss. If you have a good mid-game team, you pick Sorcerer because Sorcerer is like a nice insurance versus the hand, who is the hardest part of this run now. Otherwise, he just makes like, 2-ish mana per turn. Lots of items that make Sorcerer just auto-win you the game too. So if you can get away with clicking on Sorcerer, you play Sorcerer. Sparky's good. I think Sparky is one of my favorite, maybe my favorite tier 2 blue. He has good consistent mana gain. He's better if the rest of your team makes mana, but he doesn't need it because you can just have him lock 1 mana and then zap things, and zap is very, very good. 1 mana, deal 2 damage is great, even if it's once per turn. How many more of these are there? Not too many. Spellblade is good. Imbue is great. Consistent mana output is good. Poison is good. Copycat's good. This character is very good. This is one of the characters that ends up staying to the end of your run sometimes because Spellblade is just so good. It's very good if you can give Spellblade +1s. Pairs well with Armor, one of the characters that Armor likes a lot. This is Stalwart. Stalwart's like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to put him in not great. It's just like, I want to illustrate that there's a huge divide here between these 2 characters and every other gray. So that's why Stalwart's going down. He's okay. The problem that Stalwart faces is if someone has an incoming damage hit of like +7 or +6, like a big hit coming in, he's really bad. You can't do anything about that. He just kind of offers thoughts and prayers and throws up a 2 shield and goes, well, see you in the next fight, buddy. And then your character dies, and there's nothing he can really do. So I don't like Stalwart all that much as a result, but he's not Prince. That's the big thing about the tier 3 grays. There's also a little more consistency in tier 3 grays because there's only 7 of them, so you can hit Keeper Poet a lot more often than when there's 8 characters. Keep that in mind as well. What's next? Stoic. I actually think Stoic is... I'm able to put him in good. I think he's not so bad. I know what I just said and I wanted to illustrate that there's a difference, but I think Stoic, even though my pick rate doesn't reflect it, I think he does get to go up a tier. He is pretty good. It's not a big difference. Actually, no, I should keep him low because even still, like, I would rather have Keeper or Poet over Stoic. So that is worth noting. He's still fine. If you get Empty Cup for this guy, he starts stunning bosses. Or not Empty Cup, sorry, Second Heart for this guy, he starts stunning bosses. But mostly what you do with him is you say, I have this character, I have Warlock, I have Agent, I have Barbarian, and I'm going to keep them alive. And Stoic keeps them alive. He's very good at protecting the president. Let me scroll down a little bit. I got a little messed up because there's a new row. I'm on Surgeon. Surgeon's good. He makes a lot of healing. I think he's a little weaker because Operate sucks, but sometimes you just have to operate out of the hand, and that's fine too. So he's okay. He can clutch out bad fights, which is nice. His mana out. Oh, he's also the best guy to hold Botany because he has healing on every side. But yeah, he's just kind of like good. I think Trapper's not great, actually, funnily enough. Trapper used to be really, really good, like one of the best tier 2 oranges, but this character is basically two sides in a lot of fights with those two 1 damage vulnerables. If you can't kill something with kill from 4 in a fight, this character is really worthless. Like super, super bad. It's kind of crazy. Anything else I want to say? Nah, not particularly. Valkyrie is death. Can you believe this? I'm actually putting Valkyrie in close to the bottom. This character is really bad now. Valkyrie is good if you are walking into the hand, I think, and you have like Valkyrie versus Prince or something like that, but you can usually sculpt your run around it. I think that if you're playing a non-standard team comp that has to play long, you need to play Valkyrie for the hand because you need to have access to Death Defy and Revive. But in normal play, where you're playing the game on basic and you're not doing anything too crazy, I think this character is really useless. There's very, very little for her to do. 4 of her sides are effectively X's at the start of a fight, with 2 Death Defies and the Revive and the X. A lot of times you're not getting value. It's hard to get value out of Death Defy very often on turn 1. And turn 2 and beyond, it's like, well, what do I want to do? I want to revive? God, no. This character is not good. Vampire is good. Vampire is very good. Infuse is an extremely strong spell, and Vampire always hits 2 mana or 2 damage for you, which is great in the mid game. Venom. Venom's good. Kills bosses, kind of weak on the way to the bosses, but stacking poison on major bosses is very strong. You play slow into the bosses and let Venom just build up 2 poison at a time. Problem with Venom is sometimes you miss, but hey, you do get cleanse, which is a nice little addition that your run may be missing. So overall, I think Venom is good. The oranges just have this like big skew, right? I'd always rather have Venom over Sharpshot, for example. Veteran, he's not great. Veteran has the problem of being pretty good in a pool of the best characters in the game. 3 of the best characters in the game are in the yellow pool, and Veteran is also there. So it's tough for him. That's all. He's like pretty good if you see Dumbbell, I guess. But I don't know. He's like, you pick him and you go, fine, I'll play Veteran, basically. Wanderer is very good. Wanderer is like in contention for best character in the game. He's one of the best. He fits into every comp because he can make mana through his copycat, since all of the reds that make mana are mana gaining. He can era to go long, and he can defy if he gets taken for big damage, and he has a lot of HP. He's like giga broken. He's so strong. Warden, he's good. Again, he just doesn't see a lot of play because he's in the tier that Knight's in. So he struggles as a result, but still fine. Warlock is very good. Probably the best blue. Blaze is super broken. Extremely powerful spell. And he's not too hard to keep alive. You only have to blaze most bosses twice for them to be dead. Sometimes it's 3 times if you're fighting the hand, but most bosses, if you do 26 damage to them over a few turns, they are killed. And Warlock is very good at that. Assuming that the rest of your team is doing something. That's the asterisk there. Weaver is... I've actually had a little bit of bad success with Weaver. I'll give him good for now, because blue is a very important role, and Weaver has a good spell. So he gets to stay, but he's been suffering a little bit lately. Weaver really wants you to have increased mana capacity so that you can hold more mana for him to go off uncharged. Because otherwise, I don't know, he just kind of sits there and rolls like 3 mana, and then you have a bunch of X's and you go, what am I doing now? And sometimes you'll never hit your charged, and that's the big problem that Weaver faces. But he's still pretty good. I would still pick him. Like, I'm not mad about Weaver. Whirl, you're gonna find this shocking. I think that he's just death. I don't think he's a horror. I think that Whirl is... he's not the end of the world. Whirl. Anyway, sorry. I don't think that he's so bad. He's just very bad. He's not quite the worst, because you know what's the thing about Whirl? He has... oh man, he's so bad. What am I saying? No, he's terrible. You want to avoid this guy. If I'm I just thought about it a little more. There's nothing about him. What the fuck am I talking about? This guy's awful. Oh my god, he's so bad. 1 damage to all is not good here. Witch is good. Her spell is super, super powerful. That's the big thing about Witch. She is, she's like just really good. I don't know. I'm an hour of yapping straight. I'm sorry, I'm losing it at the end here. I thought I was gonna make it to completion. Witch's biggest problem is she's inconsistent. She's good at healing, but if you need cleanse, she might not roll cleanse. If you need weaken, she might not roll weaken. She's inconsistent. She has 5 different sides. Her spell is good, but she needs to get her consistency from your blue giving her mana to give you healing when you need it. The thing is, you're gonna hit something. You're gonna hit a weaken, or you're gonna hit a cleanse, or you're gonna hit a heal cleave. Like, you have to roll something. So it's good as long as you get good value. And you can get good value out of it a lot of the time. Wizard is not great. The best thing that Wizard can do for you is hold the items that you took thinking you were gonna see Sorcerer. He is really good if you can get him to 4 on his sides, because then you get to go 4 damage, reuse 4 damage. But it's kind of hard to do, and sometimes you're just not going to hit permaboost on time. It is fun to play him with things like Metal Studs and Silk Cape, though, because you get to make some big numbers, and permaboosting is fun, but I think this guy is just not very good. He's not a great carry. He's just kind of, like, consistently okay. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. He's consistently okay. And then, last but not least, is Wraith, who I think is not great. Wraith is okay. The problem with this character is that she cannot heal your team. She's just awful at it. You have, oh, well, streamer, you have the enchant, heal, shield, and enchant. Yeah, that's not very good. And you have the kill yourself and heal 5, but if you remember at the start, the whole goal is to not die. So Leech is a bad spell, and this character just brings no healing. The thing this character does bring is, in the back of your mind, you can go, well, I could win any fight because if I just roll the cantrip enough times, I can win out. And that is a fun thought. But she's still not very good. She's my least favorite of the reds. I also don't like that she doesn't have mana gain. She has normal 2 manas, which is bad for Wanderer. And that'll do it. So I want to give you some closing thoughts here to make sure that I really drive home the point of this tier list. The point of this tier list is not to be like, ooh, well, in this position, I'm looking at Agent versus Bash, and the streamer said I should play Agent in that position. You need to have the skill developed to recognize when these characters are good. Like, you need to be able to understand, like, okay, well, in this position, Brawler's pretty good, but I've already had to pick Sharp Shot and I already had to pick like Sharp Shot and Chronos, so if I pick Brawler, my damage output's going to be lacking. Therefore, I should probably be looking for something like Barbarian here. Maybe I'll pick a Forsaken instead of a Brawler so that I can preserve my yellow pick. That's how you need to approach the game. But the main point that I want to make sure I make clear here is that you are doing everything in your power to avoid this row, this bottom row. You need to be thinking about randoming, and you need to be 100% sure that you're avoiding this. Specifically, the way that I think about it is you can recover from bad tier 2s. It's hard to recover from bad tier 3s. So what you're really doing is everything in your power to avoid these 4 characters and roulette if you don't have a left side replacer. And I think, actually, I should just bring Ace down here as well. It's kind of disingenuous if I'm putting Gas down here, that I should put Ace down here as well. So this is what you're doing. You are playing this game to avoid these 6 characters. And if you are re-rolling and you're not looking at like Ludus Ace or like Eccentric Prince, you need to have a very good reason as to why. That's the main takeaway from this tier list. If you're trying, and this is all like, if you're trying to improve your win rate and trying to put up a big streak, what you need to do is think like that. You don't want to think like, oh, well, I don't really like Wraith versus Valkyrie here. You pick Wraith, it's fine. You get over yourself because you don't like Wraith, it's okay. You still pick Wraith there because it's better than randoming and landing Ace. The core of this theory and the core of the way that I play this game is that if I'm trying to win 100 times in a row, I need to be considering and mitigating things that have like above a 1% chance to happen, right? And if you're rolling random and you're looking at like there's like a 5 out of, let's say you're looking at one of these characters, right? Let's say you're looking at like Ace versus Valkyrie. If you're pressing random and you're looking at like a 4 out of, was that like a 4 out of 30 or a 4 out of 20, something like that, like a 4 out of 30, to land on one of these characters, that's going to happen sometimes. And then you're going to be stuck with Prince and you're going to go, man, I sure get Prince a lot. What the hell happened? I keep randoming into this guy. Well, the problem is that you're just getting unlucky, but also you need to mitigate your luck. That's what Slice and Dice is about. Man, I keep landing on this eccentric guy when I press my random button. Yeah, stop pressing random. That's the trick. Solved it for you. So just make sure that if you are randoming, you have a good reason. That is the core of this video. At the start, when I was learning Slice and Dice, I remember the guy in first place I heard had said he randoms a lot because everything's pretty good. And I think that's good for trying to go up to like 30 to 40 win streaks, but it's bad if you're trying to go to 100, which is what I want to do. And I think soon I will have it. Maybe. We'll see. It's a lot of pressure, but I just like Slice and Dice, so yeah, hopefully you found this video enjoyable, helpful, inspiring, perhaps. If you did find out any of those things, you can leave me a like, if you wanna. And I will probably post this on the subreddit. I'll probably post my spreadsheet on the subreddit. I don't know if I'll actually post the video. I have to like talk to the moderation team and see how they feel about it. I don't know. Anyway, that's a problem for me of the future to deal with, and I'm probably just going to do nothing but post this video and move on. Hey, if you want to go post this video on the subreddit or talk about it, hey, that'd be sweet. Then I don't have to do it. Hey, can you guys go do my job for me? Anyway, I'm going to go now. I'm kind of hungry. I haven't eaten yet today. I hope that you have a nice rest of your day. I will be back tomorrow, and I'm going to be talking about the curses, which I have a lot of thoughts on. So, have a good day. Bye-bye.